This evening, given the seriousness of the topic, I've decided that really music will not be appropriate for this program. But before I tell you what we're going to be doing, I want to just do a shout out to the Toronto Fire Department, because you know what? I need to start with a little bit of levity tonight. Yesterday, I was transporting what is called a cat tree from my dear friend Sonia's place, and it's about 3 blocks from my house. And if you ever seen one of those cat trees, they're quite high and they're made of plywood and carpeting, and this one had 2 ports, I call them, for the cats. Anyway, I thought I'd just walk it over, and I got about a half a block to my place, and then down the street I see this fire truck down about another block over. And I'm just standing there, and I'm thinking about clever things to say to the fire department, the firefighters. And they come close to me, and I said, "Hi, how you doing?" He said, "Oh, we're fine." I said, "Oh, you're out today?" He said, "Yeah, we're out." I thought maybe they're getting their groceries, because sometimes they all get into the truck, take it out for a drive, and go get some ice cream or something. Well, they didn't do that sometimes, but they were actually giving out pamphlets for fire safety. And I said, "Hey, do you guys still rescue cats up trees?" And they said, "Oh, we don't get many calls for those anymore." I said, "But how about ladies with cat trees?" So I was just kidding with them, of course. So 2 of the firefighters jumped out of the fire engine, and they said, "Where do you have to take that?" And I said, No, it's okay. You don't have to help me. I'll be fine." And they looked at me and they thought, "You're not going to be fine, lady. That thing is huge, and we can tell you're up in years." So they grabbed it like it was just a twig, and I said, "Well, it's just over there." "Oh, that high rise over there?" I said, "Yeah." So they walked me through a big parking lot across the street, and they said, "I said, you can just drop it here in front of my building." No. "We'll take it inside." So they took it right in to my apartment and laid it on my living room floor. I thought, and as we were walking by one house, this guy said, "Whoa, that's service." So I thought, kind of renewed my faith in humankind, because sadly, very, very sadly, it's getting, we always have some problem on the planet. It's never perfect. But when you have these kinds of things happen and you think, wow, there is a light shining in the world. But tonight, we hope to shine a light. And in studio, I have with me 2 people, a husband and wife team, actually, Gary Rose, who's a social media manager, and Debbie Rose, project coordinator for Project Abraham. Now, that is one of the campaigns under the auspices of Mozuud Freedom Foundation, which was launched back in 2015, not too long ago. And that's to help unite people around the world to speak with one powerful voice on important issues, whether they're local, regional, or international. And tonight, one of the campaign we're going to talk about is that of the Yazidis. You've probably finally seen them in the news, but it's been a full 3 years since they were brutally attacked by ISIS in their villages scattered throughout Nineveh Plain, beneath Mount Sinjar. That's their sacred mountain, where they have lived for 7,000 years. They're an ancient, indigenous, monotheistic people, peaceful, who live basically in Iraq and also in Syria. So I want to welcome you, Debbie and Gary, to A Drink of Water. This is a very serious topic, because we all know just how hard it's been to bring the plight of the Yazidis into the public eye, and to bring it to the government's attention, and so on and so forth, worldwide.
Yes, thank you, Joyce. We really appreciate you giving us an opportunity to come and speak about this.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be able to come and talk about the Yazidis.
Yeah, well, it is, because they are a pleasurable people. They're beautiful people. And they do integrate very well into Western society. And a lot of people didn't know who they were, I mean, even myself, when I first heard about them just over 2 years ago, when I was approached by, actually, Renana Goldhar, who's going to be doing a vigil this Thursday down in front of the U.S. consulate between, was it 5 and 6:30?
Yes, it's between 5 and 6:30.
Yeah, when she said, you want to get involved with the Yazidis, I said, who are the Yazidis? I had no idea, but I had heard that that a group called ISIS had attacked Christians in Mosul, and that they had been thrown out of their respective churches and homes, and that many had been killed, and that they were being asked to pay these special tariffs or taxes or whatever to be able to stay, and so on. It's so many nightmarish stories. But the biggest nightmare happened when ISIS set their sights on Nineveh Plain. And we know that story didn't turn out well at all.
No, for those of your listeners who aren't familiar with it, the Yazidis, well, first of all, I'd like to say that this isn't something new.
No.
It's not a new phenomena. This is actually the 72nd genocide that this people have experienced. And if we go back just a few hundred years, there was like 23 million in the world, and we're down to under 2 million right now. I mean, this is a group that's could be extinct very soon if we don't do something to help them.
That's right. And the governments have been reluctant to use the word genocide and Holocaust, but in actual fact, that's exactly what has happened with the Yazidi, that it is a genocide that's being perpetrated. It has been tried many, many times, but like you said, 72 times. But this time, it's brutal. This is a time when they actually can't get back to their homes.
Yes, it's absolutely brutal what has been going on with the Yazidis. The problem with the discrimination against the Yazidis, it's religious discrimination.
Right.
And the Yazidis, unfortunately, don't fit into the rest of the culture that's around them. And based on their religion, they're persecuted. Unlike Christians and Jews, who are considered people of the book, the Yazidis are considered infidels. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they're targeted as people to be exterminated.
Well, the Middle East has done a very good job of removing Jews from the country, during the time of Nasser. And back in I think it was early 60s, was it? And late 50s, that a lot of Jews had to flee.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, many of our Yazidi community here had never really met a Jew in their lives, but mm-hmm. they have stories from their parents and grandparents who were neighbors with the Jews who lived there at that time.
That's right.
And they have stories, but there aren't any Jews living there now.
Well, they actually have stories of them helping the
yes.
Jews who had just the shirt on their back, basically, and no money, and having to run and helping them get to Israel.
That's true.
So, for a society like Mozuud, which is predominantly a Jewish society, and Project Abraham, and also Project Ezra, I'd like to mention, out of Winnipeg, Jews are helping Yazidis. Of course, other people, all peoples are. I mean, it really is layered, and people from all demographics and cultures and faiths. But there is a definite brotherhood there.
One thing I'd really like your listeners to know, because many times when people ask me who the Yazidis are, mm-hmm. their first thought is that it's some sect of Islam that's not accepted by the Muslims. And it's not. It's nothing to do with Islam at all.
No, it's not like it's a Shia thing. Yeah.
Well, it pre-existed. It's been around for 7,000 years.
Exactly.
And, the Muslim religion Islam came, in the 1400s. So they have their own very unique religion, and it really has nothing to do with Islam.
Exactly. And they're basically an agrarian society.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who come here were farmers at one point, mm-hmm. or their families were farmers. But, we get everybody. We've got people who went to university. We've got teachers. We've got people who studied to be mathematicians. And we've got storekeepers and
of course, exactly.
Yes, a lot of farmers, yeah.
A lot, no, but initially it was an agrarian society. Of course, the children, it's like, how are you going to keep them down the farm after they've seen Paris? The kids mm-hmm. want to go on. They want to do something else, like Sadi's story. He's a mathematician and a brilliant guy, and having his life disrupted. So the thing is that I want to discuss really is some of the practical aspects. We know that there have been so many atrocities perpetrated against the Yazidis throughout those 72 attempted genocide, but it's still as heinous, it's still as horrible, and we've heard, when you say we're going to bring Yazidis to Canada, first of all, that has been difficult because the Yazidis have to come through a family reunification process rather than just quickly vetted, not even, and brought over here. They have to go through a completely different process. So, Debbie, you've been really, really very deeply involved in that. Let's start with that. So how a Yazidi who's in Iraq wants to get out of there, not because they want to get out of there, because they have to. Everything is destroyed. Everything is rubble. Everything's a mess.
Well, first I'd like to clarify that it's not exactly that the only way they can get out is through family reunification. It's just that Project Abraham has focused on that up until now, primarily because it has been the Yazidis who are here already who have come to us and said, can you help? Can you get my brother's family out? Can you get my parents here? And so we have been focused on family reunification. But they are subject to the same process as any refugee. And if we had somebody from Iraq who didn't have family here who asked us to bring them over, we would go through the same process. It would be okay because the government has set up a program of sponsorship.
Okay, yes.
Where you can create a resettlement group of at least 5 people. You're responsible financially. You're responsible for resettling them. This is what happened with a lot of the Syrian refugees. So that is also a possibility.
It is, but we were able to bring 40,000 Syrians in without as much difficulty as someone who's as persecuted as the Yazidis, and that's the troublesome part.
Yes. That
initially, in order to get the ball rolling, it had to be through family reunification. Then to convince the government, which it's only been a year, I think July of last year, was it not, when they actually agreed to what the UN had said, that
October.
Yeah. Oh, is it October? Was it October? Is it October? I don't know why I was thinking July. Maybe I'm thinking of the time.
There was a time last June when it was brought up the first time and it was voted down.
That's right. That's right.
And then in October they wanted to vote it down again, but the UN 2 days later the UN came through with their own acknowledgement of the genocide, and so at that point the government said okay.
So and at that time, what did they want to do? They said that we'll bring in
800 survivors of ISIS, victims of ISIS. Not necessarily all Yazidis, but a large majority Yazidis. So maybe they're promising like 700, 750 or something like that. Not 800. It was 1,200.
It was 1,200
and then 800.
And
then maybe 800 would be Yazidis.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's not enough.
It's not enough
because
because really, when you think about how many Yazidis need, it's not a matter of wanting; it's needing to get out of there. Because let's talk a little bit about what they're facing there.
Well, most of them are in camps within Iraq. We can talk about the ones who are in Turkey as well. That it's bad no matter where they are, but they're in camps, and those that aren't in camps, they can't get work. So there's no way, there's no livelihood. The camps, there's a lack of food, there's a lack of medicine, there's a lack of everything. I mean, the suffering is really terrible.
And because they're Yazidis, if they're in camps with fellow Iraqis who may be Muslim, I have to say that because sadly, there is such animosity there.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, but I think within Iraq, the camps they're in are Yazidi camps. But once you get into a place like Turkey, for example,
sure,
the Yazidis can't go into the refugee camps. You'll have camps for Syrians and so forth, and they cannot be there because the persecution continues. So they're hiding in the towns there.
If they do go into the camps, they disguise themselves as Muslims. That's the only way that they can be in the camps.
Yeah.
So they pretend. They dress as Muslims and they pretend they're Muslims.
I understand even those Yazidis have ended up in Germany, have similar problems. And in that country as well, that there are a lot of things.
They've had problems in Germany. They've had problems in Greece.
Yes.
Yes, it's not pleasant for them wherever they go as refugees. So what they try and do is to keep out of the camps as much as possible.
Okay, we're going to go to break. It's 9:15 here at CHHA 1610AM. We'll be back with more talk about the Yazidis and some practical things that can be done to help them. And as much as I would it's like, it's almost like I would like to define exactly what they've gone through, list atrocities. Not going to do that because it's counterproductive to what we want to do to help these people. But believe me, anything that you've ever thought of that's heinous and evil and awful has happened to the Yazidis. We'll be back right after this break.
You are listening to Radio Voces Latinas, 1610 AM. A drink of water.
If you're just joining us here on A Drink of Water, I have in studio Gary Rose and his wife Debbie Rose, who have been deeply involved in helping to bring Yazidi families. And when I say families, we're talking about women and children, because a lot of the men they're missing or murdered. It's that simple. So they're coming over. They're coming over in shock. They're coming over a myriad of psychological problems, physical. So it's just absolutely horrible what they're facing. And if anyone saw the recent Toronto Star article just before the weekend, it talks about one girl, who, and this is very typical, especially with the ones that were just recently released from Mozuud, because they're like, I would say, hardcore. They've been there. The earlier releases, it was bad enough, they said, but the ones that were released recently through Mozuud, these poor girls, they're completely in shock, sleeping for a week and can hardly talk. They have no language. And Mirza Ismail, who is the president of Yazidi Human Rights Organization, who's leader of the Yazidis here in Canada and abroad, I believe, as well. He's a sheikh for the Yazidi people. He was saying something about a lady who's recently come to Montreal who's so in that kind of shock. Dear, what to do, Debbie, Gary.
Well, it is challenging. I can differentiate between the family reunification that we've done from the Yazidis in Turkey. Now, these, I won't call them lucky. They've lost everything, and being in Turkey was no fun.
No,
they
especially with the new leadership there.
They had to hide, and like they were starving there, and they, so getting them over was absolutely essential. Mm-hmm. But let's just say they weren't in the hands of ISIS being raped. It's a different story. So we did get over the people who managed to escape and get to Turkey. We brought them over, family reunification. So we did have some men in the family, brothers who were still there. Some of the people who are coming over now, we can't bring people over from Iraq because in private sponsorship you can only do refugees, and if they're still in the country, their own country, they're not considered
the displaced persons.
That's right.
That's
right.
It's
a craziness.
We can't do anything about that. So the people that are coming over from Iraq, who are the actual surviving victims of ISIS, are being brought over on the government-sponsored program, and this is where we're seeing the trauma.
And this is actually some good news that the government has started to move people from these areas. And I know that the government, the Kurdish government there, had said you can't. Initially, had said you can't take the Yazidis out of here. They belong to us. They're our people.
Yeah,
it was like, what the heck? It's
very difficult for the people on the ground to rescue these girls and bring them over because they put themselves at risk. Mm-hmm. So the government is doing it very...
Some people have died trying to do it. People are dying to rescue these girls.
Trying to rescue the girls.
Yeah,
so
it's a heroic effort.
The government is doing it carefully and quietly. That's one of the reasons we believe it's because it puts people on the ground at risk.
Yes.
And also, when these girls and women come across, they have to be kept... Their profile has to be kept low because if they become recognized, a picture gets published, they have family over there that can be at risk.
That's right.
So it all has to be done very, very carefully.
Well, the way the families were segregated initially when ISIS went in, I mean, older women, younger girls, children, boys, all went off into different, basically they just grouped them. And so a lot of people haven't seen a daughter or a son, or like you this 12-year-old boy who was just found recently,
yes. Amazing story.
Oh, and hopefully quickly will be reunited with his mom in Winnipeg, which I believe that would be Project Ezra.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Project Ezra is involved in that one.
Yeah.
But we're it's just really sad to see the people who are coming over now. They're mostly women with a lot of children. Their brothers, their fathers, they're gone.
Yeah.
And they're widowed and they're single parents. And they're trying to adjust to a whole new country. And it's really very sad to see.
Sad, and yet there's an amazing strength that I see as well.
That's true.
When I won't say where I went, but I went to record a story, of a young girl. I don't know if I can... I could, because it's going to be broadcast, but
you're
no
not
names.
Name her,
obviously not, no. But the young girl, the 11-year-old, who, when she was captured by ISIS, they were going to marry her off. And the terrible things that were happening, with her. And the fact that she was able to flee ISIS by using her wits, because she had said that she was very afraid and couldn't sleep, so they took her to the doctors, and the doctor gave her sleeping tablets and to sleep, but ISIS didn't take them from her. So that night when she said, "Make us a cup of tea," she put all the sleeping tablets in the
At
teapot.
That time, she was like 9 years old. I mean, it's amazing.
I know, it's amazing that she would. I know, and that's amazing that she was going to be married off to this. Married in quotes, that would have been the first of many. And then she was able to not escape herself, but just with 5 other Yazidi girls. And that poor child had also witnessed 2 of her girls in her age group say, "We're not going to, dance." They wanted them to dance for them and everything, so they sent them to the showers, and they killed themselves.
Yes. There have been a lot of suicides.
A lot of suicides, and then they took the bodies and they fed them to the dogs. I mean, that's one. I won't go into anything else, but to be honest, that's the value of a Yazidi life.
Yes.
With these people, and it's evil, it's heinous, and we need to do as much as we can. So, what if somebody's listening right now and says, "You know what? I got it. I can't do nothing." It's like with Steve Maman, or you, or me, or you, Gary, or Renana, or whoever it is, Joffrey Clarfield with Mozuud. Anyone who hears this story, so many, many people volunteering now, they're coming forward. What can they do? What would a volunteer be expected to do?
Well, there's many, many things they can do.
Many roles.
There's many roles, because I think there's now, at this stage, 2 different kinds of things we're involved in. The first is taking care of the Yazidis who have arrived, and the second is trying to bring more over.
Absolutely.
So in the first category, we've been forming resettlement groups. Anybody can become part of that, and they're helping.
That's 5 to 7 people, is it? Or approximately.
Approximately, and they're helping to resettle the family. So they're
getting
clothing. Well, it's a little bit different from, say, a resettlement group that was formally put in place for a Syrian family who knew nobody over here, and they literally were responsible for finding housing and everything, like doctors and OHIP and the whole thing. The privately sponsored here, they get a lot of support from the Yazidi community here.
It's a very good community.
It's extremely good. And so there's one particular man, Hyder, who is the center of the community, and he literally, with the help of his brothers and sons, find housing for everybody who's arrived. He's just an amazing man. So that sort of takes some of the pressure off these resettlement groups, because they don't have as much to do as they might, but they're collecting clothing and household goods and furniture.
ESL
and,
classes.
We've created our own Project Abraham Community ESL to
Wonderful.
supplement the formal ESL classes that they get to help them practice. We have a lot of volunteers helping with that. It's fantastic. And there's, if some of them have medical problems, and the resettlement group might help them, take them to doctors, driving them from here to there. There's many, many roles. We also have a fundraising committee that are for raising funds.
Let's talk about that. There's a crowdfunding. And Gary, you set that up, did you?
I set up the crowdfunding.
Right.
And the crowdfunding is really important because that is where we got...
That's the do-re-mi. You got to have it.
That's right. You've got to have it there because when we do applications to bring Yazidis over, the applications go in with a commitment of a certain amount of money that we have to give up front to the government.
Is that about, was it $35,000? Is that for a family of 4 to 6? Is that about right?
That's approximate.
Approximate.
It varies.
Right.
Yeah, it varies from family to family.
That money has to be up there, up front.
Because it's got to be there to say, okay, we have a commitment of this X amount of thousands of dollars. It's going to pay for their rent, for their clothes,
Right.
every
for their first year.
For the
supposed
first
to
year.
help
for the
them
first
through
year.
the first year.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you've been able to raise, I think, just over $100,000.
Yes,
That's
it hasn't all been through crowdfunding. It's been through many different
Exactly.
forms of fundraising.
I'd like to send people, before we go to break, I'd like you to, while we're in break, go to your computer and go to Mozuud.org. That's M as in Mary, OZUUD.org. MOZUUD.org. And you'll see Project Abraham there. It goes under the Yazidi tab, and we'll be back right after this set of commercials, and back with more of Gary and Debbie Rose, and talking about the Yazidis and how you can.
You are listening to Radio Voces Latinas, 1610 AM. A drink of water.
It's 24 degrees and 9:30 here at CHHA 1610 AM in Toronto. We know a lot of you are listening online as well, and this is listened to by a lot of people in a lot of countries out there. We'd like to hear from you, no, you don't have to call in, but certainly let us know if you're listening. Go to our website, and that would be CHHA1610am.ca, and let us know what your thoughts are about tonight's program. And if you'd like to help the Yazidis, we're here with Gary and Debbie Rose, and they are a real dynamic duo, and they've been helping almost from the beginning here with Project Abraham, which is Save the Yazidis at Mozuud. And of course, I directed you to Mozuud.org. That's MOZUUD.org. One world, many voices, and it's like a little bit like us, La Voz de Nuestra Comunidad. We are the voice of the community, and a very important voice. So we're going to go to talking more about what we can do for the Yazidis, and to bring them here, because they really are integrating beautifully into Western society. It's not a difficult thing,
Yeah, they're a fantastic community. One of the great things about volunteering to help these people is that it's a reward just to make, be in relationship with them. They are just so loving and so appreciative.
And generous.
Oh. And it's just such a joy to be with them. It's
kind people. And, Gary.
Yeah, if I can describe the community, it's like one big open house.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
And people are coming, people are going, the kids are running around. And the wonderful thing that I've seen with the Yazidis is that they are so caring of their children.
And the kids aren't spoiled brats.
The kids are not spoiled brats. All the kids participate in the community equally with the parents. They seem to take on the responsibility of caring for each other, like for the younger kids.
Kids go to everybody. It's like
Kids go to
everybody's,
everybody.
They're a beautiful extension.
wonderful.
They really are a tremendous extended family.
And didn't you tell me that at the ESL, when you had the children's table?
I'm working with the kids at ESL. I don't teach ESL, so I'm doing arts and crafts with the kids.
Oh, lovely.
And at the end, the place is a complete mess with stuff on the floor. Everything's a mess.
Oh, Gary, you should clean up after yourself. I
These
was with you.
These children,
Messy boy.
These children, without art, you don't have to even ask them. It's the end. They all get together. They're all cleaning up. They're making sure that the place is spotless.
Beautiful.
You don't have to ask them. You don't have to tell them. It's just automatic. That's what they do.
So aware.
Very aware. Very, very aware.
That's beautiful, and I know the hospitality in a Yazidi home is beautiful as well.
No, you can't knock on the door without being invited in and being given, if not a meal, and often it is a meal, then refreshments.
A cup of tea, something to refresh them. Yeah, everything.
If they're eating, we're invited to the table with them. And actually, it isn't a table. It's a
on
big,
the floor.
On the floor,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's a feast.
Well, Abraham's tent. All
Yes.
four walls
right.
were open, and they trace their roots back to Abraham right through to Adam.
That's right.
And 7,000 years. I mean, this is really cool. And you think of Ur, which was in that, and Nineveh. These are all ancient names that you hear. These are historical places. This stuff really happened, and they have that same thing with the open tent. Everybody come.
That's right, they
That's
do.
right.
One thing that sticks in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't just normally happen. When I visited Haida for the first time, and it was just full of people, I'm sitting down on a couch, just serving me tea, and all of a sudden, somebody hands me a baby. And I'm there holding this baby. I don't know whose baby it was, but I was given a baby to hold. This is what they do. Everybody just is open and loving, and I'm cradling a baby while I'm sipping tea. How many houses do you go into when they just say, "Here,
here's my baby, be my baby," or take my baby? No, it is a truly beautiful community. It's sad because there's still about 3,500 women and children who are still captives of ISIS. And when we say captives, enslaved, and the atrocities that are taking place. No, I won't list anymore. But it's almost, it's almost like I want to list them. I'm not going to. But when you think of Yad Vashem in Israel,
yes,
we did not hide it. That is not hidden. You see the lampshades made of skin. You see the wall. You see everything that happened. You see everything. Because we can't forget, and we can't minimize what's happening to people in this kind of genocide / Holocaust. Can't. Because if we minimize it at all and say, well, we really can't talk about that. We really can't, we don't want to gross people out. We don't want to make them think, oh, well, how come, when I was starting to talk to people first about this a couple of years ago, when I first found out about it, they say, how do you know? Are you sure about that? Well, we didn't hear from Amnesty International or Doctors Without Borders, and they would certainly know, firsthand. So how do you know? Where do you get your information? And I told them where I got it from Mirza Ismail, someone who of course knew firsthand.
Actually, ISIS doesn't hide it. They advertise it.
They do.
They show everything. They tell everything. It's not
But
hidden.
people still don't want to believe it. It's like, during the Holocaust, when I say 6 million Jews, but 11 million people were killed in that, in that horrible thing, in the camps. People didn't want to believe. They heard the stories. They did. Mm-hmm. The propaganda, but they didn't want to believe it. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's because it's so heinous, so evil. How can anyone do that in a civilized world?
Well, it is being documented now. The UN are going in there, and they are digging it. They're seeing the grave sites.
The mass graves.
The
terrible.
mass graves. It's terrible. And they're documenting. And Nadia
Murad. Nadia Murad, what an incredible lady.
She's been to Israel, and she is learning how to document a genocide.
Yes, through the Israelis, that's right.
That's right. And what she wants to do the same thing. She wants to document the people who have died so people do not forget who they were.
That's right. And, you know, the saying, you save one person, you save the world. And thank God for Nadia Murad, because she really is the one, I believe, that brought this to the Western media in a way that people could actually, you know, it was palpable. This slight, you know, we met her. Yeah. This slight little girl, can't speak English, she's with a translator, and she's just, you look at her and you think, what you have been through. You know, and she thinks she's one of the lucky ones.
Unfortunately, her message, while very powerful, hasn't resulted in a lot of action.
No, but she's got George Clooney's wife working with her, doesn't she? But we thought that might be working, but it's sort of kind of just skipping on the top of the waves.
Both of them got very, very frustrated,
very disillusioned
because. The UN and the governments that they talk to listened to them. They gave them a place to speak, but they haven't yet followed through with any kind of action to actually go into Iraq and do the kinds of things that they are advocating that need to be done, like prosecution, like rescuing. It's just not being done.
Need a Nuremberg.
You need something.
Need something, yeah. But people are so afraid. What are they afraid of? You know, because he's, you know,
a lot of it's political.
Oh well, it's a real pretzel, worse than a convoluted, mixed up pretzel. It's like more of a spaghetti mess down in there.
Yeah,
the politics.
The politics of northern Iraq. It's very complex with lots of competing groups.
Yes,
and they want to take ownership of Kurdistan, and the Yazidis are being.
Well, it's not only a genocide; it's an ethnic cleansing as well.
Yeah,
they're being kicked out of their own home.
They're being kicked out of their own country,
and they're trying to assimilate them into those who are the Muslims, like into the Islamic State of, you know, and that kind of thing.
Well, each particular group is trying to make claims for
the Kurds,
for the Yazidis, mm-hmm. But these groups are competing against each other. Yeah. So the Yazidis are becoming very disillusioned.
And what they would really like is just to have Nineveh plain back and their sacred mountain, which is Mount Sinjar, and Lalish, and all these, you know, just to have their own, 320 kilometers or whatever the heck it is. Just give it to them and leave them alone. But, you know, we know that would be like the little almond of Israel, is leave us alone, you know. Yeah. But no, but it's similar. It's like, you know, it's all or nothing. Yeah. It's either you die, or we're going to fight you till you die, you know. And like the ethnic cleansing, like the complete eradication of the Yazidis off the face of the earth. And like you said, less than 2 million now. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's terrible.
It's not crazy. Yeah, there aren't words. There aren't words for it. So we need help.
Yes, we do. We need a lot more volunteers. We need to raise a lot more money. Mm-hmm. I've spent a lot of time speaking about how we're helping the groups that are here, but we haven't talked very much about what it takes to bring more in. And there's 3 components to that, and they're all very challenging. One is actually to get the government to allow more privately sponsored applications, because right now they've closed that door.
Oh, have they?
They have to, because they're so far behind that it's going to take anybody who has an application right now, they predict it'll take 5 years before these people come in. So they've closed it, so they want to catch up. So right now they're not even accepting any applications. The second part is to do the application process itself, which is horrendous. You have no idea the paperwork.
Well, I do. I've seen the binder.
Did some of it. It's like a huge pile of papers that have to be processed.
Which did not have to be done by 40,000. I mean, I'm not saying that there wasn't wrong. I do believe they need it.
That's right. Yeah, if you do the private sponsorship, you go through the unbelievable amount of paperwork. So we would have to do that.
And it has to be accurate. It's perfect. It has to be perfect.
One little mistake, one little typo, it all comes back to you. It's really
a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. And then you have the fundraising part of it, which of course is always a challenge for every group who's trying. There's so many causes out there. But you need to have this money to bring them in. The other aspect is actually the easier part would be if the government were to agree to give immigration equality to the Yazidis in the same way. They brought in 40,000 Syrians, very compassionate. Show the compassion for these people who are suffering unbelievably. Bring them in, and then the government is it's footing the bill, so it doesn't take so long as it takes us to raise the money and to do the applications. Bring them in, and we'll help. We'll work with the government to help.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of people like you said, they've closed the doors to sponsorship. There's a lot of people who would love to do that. Yeah. But in the meantime, if they can't do that, they can get in touch with you, Debbie.
Yes.
Because you are the project coordinator for Project Abraham. Project manager. But you coordinate a lot.
Well, that's all part of the job.
You're the hub. So how do they contact you?
Well, they can reach me at debbie@mozuud.org. I believe that my contact is up on our page, right, mozuud.org.
Just take a look. Contact us, under Contact Us, yeah. So you go to mozuud.org, under Contact Us, there's there's Joffrey's name's up there, and Debbie, yes, you're there as well. So definitely, you want to get in touch with Debbie, Project Abraham coordinator. It says you're a coordinator.
We'll have to change it. No, it's fine. It's good. That's what I'm doing.
That's B. Deb Rose at Rogers.com actually is what's
and
there.
That's an old email as well. It will still work, but it's probably easier for them to do Debbie at Mozuud.
Absolutely,
or DEBBIE.
That's right. So definitely get in touch with Debbie. Oh my gosh, the time is almost right. We have one more segment coming up. I told you it goes fast. We didn't even play any music tonight. But I would encourage anybody who wants to make a difference in their lives, definitely call Debbie and get in touch with her, email her to volunteer. Now, the frequently asked questions, if you're wondering about it, there's some FAQs there on the Mozuud site. We're going to go into those a little bit when we come back from break, because it is break time again, which is great. We have to make room for those the advertisements. I know what I'm talking about. I got some words in my mouth here. So it's 9:45. We're going to go out to some break here and back with Debbie and Gary Rose right after this.
You are listening to Radio Voces Latinas, 1610 AM. A drink of water.
Well, for those of you who have stuck with us here during A Drink of Water, talking about the Yazidis, and certainly I'm hoping that your interest has been not just sparked, but ignited, on fire to help the Yazidi people, because, it's a thin edge of the wedge. When a group of people like the Yazidis is being so persecuted by, in this case, it's ISIS, which is trying to establish a caliphate, whatever they're doing right now, but they're doing ethnic cleansing. Who's next? Right, Debbie and Gary? Exactly. I mean, who's next? And it's a reality. I mean, because if you're so adamant, I mean, the Christians aren't having a good time.
It's terrible. It's an ethnic cleansing of the Christians in the Middle East.
Actually, and Majed Shafie from One World, One Free World International, is doing some really big work there, to help them. And it's, the Assyrian, called Assyrian Christians, and anyone who is not, the Shias even, they're having a hard time. It just goes on and on and on. The Druze, the Chaldeans, it just goes on. The list goes on, and before long, it'll, you just don't know. So I was talking a little bit before we went to break about the FAQs on the Mozuud, the Project Abraham page. There's some really good answers, succinct and easy. You know, how much does it cost to sponsor a Yazidi family? We talked about that. How can I give financially? For sure you can. It tells you how you can do that as well. And so on. It's, you know, and we are dealing with ORAT still, right? The ORAT, yes.
Yeah, well, ORAT means the Office of Refugees for the Archdiocese of Toronto.
That's right.
And it's an SAH, which is a sponsorship agreement holder. These are organizations that have been authorized by the government to help process applications for refugees. Yes. And yes, we worked closely with ORAT in order to help bring over our family reunification.
Now, initially, they had to be very quiet about this as well. I remember that because it was such a touch and go situation with the Yazidi. Now it's more out there, it's more in the mainstream. But before it was almost like they had to do it on the, you know.
Yeah, we had to work out actually very hard. What happened was that the massacre at Sinjar happened just after the point where everybody saw this poor Syrian boy who had drowned, and then everybody's heart went to the Syrians, and that was a really big thing to help the Syrian people, and I understand that compassion.
Everything got lumped together.
It was, and then so when the massacre happened to the Yazidis, it was like there was no room anymore. It wasn't politically the thing that people were thinking about, and we had a lot of work. It was sort of like fighting against the current. To get people to take a look at what was happening. And I think we've made some progress, and people are more aware.
I remember when Mirza I first met Mirza Ismail, he showed me pictures. He said, we have pictures, and showing me, 500 children who died on Mount Sinjar, dehydrated and dying, and they were there. It was tragic. It is horrible.
We were in the room with Haider when he got the call from Turkey that I think it was 8 people in his family
in the boat.
Had drowned, and a few of them children. I mean, it's
and washed up on the shore, similar to the poor little Syrian boy. And sad, because people have to take such risks to get out. That shouldn't be happening in our society at all. But the thing is, we forget it's not our society. We have a different society. And the thing is that the Yazidis are integrating beautifully into Western society. I think that's a very important thing to note.
They are so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, they're going to make our country just,
I say, how does it feel? And they say, oh my goodness, we walk down the street. My father wears his special, hat. Yeah. And nobody looks and nobody says anything. Nobody cares. No. He's persecuted if he wears that over in the Middle East, right?
Well,
and they really feel the freedom. We take so much for granted here.
Well, let me tell you, it's not just the West. It's Toronto and it's Canada, because I used to work for a company. Just taking a brief anecdote here, and I will say a black man from Mississippi came up for training at our company, and he said, I feel so wonderful here. I walk down the street and nobody looks at me. And I thought, why would they? You're just a guy on the street. But for him, he was a black man on the street. Mm-hmm. And here he felt like freedom to walk and go wherever he wanted to go. And it was wonderful. So we have something very special here to offer people. And we need to remember that. I think we should be we're very blessed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, Mozuud.org, Mozuud.org. Go there, and you're going to find out all kinds of ways that you can help. Even if you're going to give $10, $5, $100. How much do you need? What kind of dollars are you looking at that you really need? I mean, let's get real.
Well, once we had success bringing over some families, all of a sudden everybody approached us and said, please, please, please. So we really have a very large number of people who are asking us to help. So we're thinking, $750,000 to $1 million if we want to help these people.
Okay.
It's a lot of money.
So that's the goal. This is like, it's not dialing for dollars exactly, but it is. We want you to put your finger on that button And we want you to go to Mozuud.org and definitely, get if you can't get involved any other way, you can't volunteer, because I'm sure you still need people to help with ESL and getting people around and
teachers, helpers, drivers, people to fill in application forms.
Or just even just to talk to people, so that they have, even if you can't teach ESL, just to be able to have that voice, right. Just to have conversations.
Collecting clothing.
Collect everything.
And, we have a little bazaar. It's not a real bazaar because we don't charge them anything, but we gather things and get them to all come out and choose what they want. It's really great.
It is great.
There's so many ways to help.
There are so many ways. So to donate, you can go there to Mozuud.org. Is there more I can do? Well, there you go.
One thing that I want to bring attention to on the website is there's one page that I've created where you can follow the progress of the Yazidi community.
Okay.
And
follow our new arrivals.
So I post articles that I've written, and I'm a bit of a photographer. So
you're a great photographer. You got a great eye.
So I've taken lots of pictures, and I post the pictures, and you can see the community, and you can follow their progress, and you can see how they're becoming integrated as new Canadians.
Oh, we got a wedding coming up.
We have a wedding coming up.
This is very
and we've had a Yazidi baby born.
Yes, we had a baby shower at your place.
We did that.
We did. It was fantastic.
It was our deal. It was our deal, Debbie. I was like, with sisters. Anyway, but it was wonderful.
These exciting life events.
Yeah,
and
it's growth. See the Yazidis growing one by one. It's so delightful.
We celebrated the Yazidi New Year.
That's right. That was fabulous.
They invited us to join them. It was wonderful. And it was historic for them because up until now, they haven't been large enough to have that kind of celebration. They were going to London where there's a larger Yazidi community. Now they have enough people in the GTA that they were able to have their own celebration.
Well, not only that, they didn't want to play music or do anything because of the massacre at Mount Sinjar, in Sinjar and Nineveh Plain, because how can you celebrate when your people, 5,000 of your men have been murdered and your families, abducted into slavery, and how can
you have to see the resilience, though.
It's amazing. Well, they did eventually, and we've had some wonderful times with the music and the dancing, and you can see it in the photographs on Mozuud.org under Yazidis, and my goodness, we're at the end of our program. I told you it goes fast. Is there anything else you'd like to say just before we to just top off? We've got a couple minutes.
It's a really big project. There's a lot of suffering out there, and there's a lot that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And more than anything, we need people. We have a lot of fantastic people doing a lot of great things, and we need more. We need more help, and we need more money.
And if people want to do their own fundraiser, their own way for the Yazidis, go ahead and do it.
Sure.
And donate the money.
Absolutely.
We'd be very happy.
It can happen really, really easily. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? And it's not hard. I mean, it just takes. I know the Free Times Cafe has. Joffrey did one. I did one.
Yes, we've had a couple.
It brings in several $100, right away, and it's fantastic, and it's not hard. If you're a musician and you want to go down and say, hey, I'm going to open the doors to the Yazidi, to collect my Yazidi, that would be good. Or anything, a garage sale. You got junk, sell it. Whatever. Well, you got junk. That sounds like a commercial. Anyway, we're going to be leaving now, and Debbie and Gary got we're at the end. This is it.
Thank you so much.
But
we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joyce.
You're welcome. But it's really just the beginning, because we're going to bring thousands of Yazidi over to Canada and build a tremendous, beautiful community here. So we'll be back next week. And thank you for joining us here on A Drink of Water on CHHA 1610 AM. It's 9:57. We're going to have a beautiful week. Enjoy.
good, so good, 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 so good, good.
CHHA